And I tell people this is try not to be unevenly yoked or unevenly balanced as it relates to money. So you got to have some, you may not be in the same place per se. Like my wife and I, we still have some differences about money, but at least we're in the ballpark on the same team and we're playing the same game. You ready?
Ready for liftoff, bro.
Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Hustle Over Everything podcast. This is the podcast where we receive stories, tips, and strategies from entrepreneurs who've done it to help you grow your business and take yourself to the next level as a person. Later today on the podcast, we have Michael Hairston. He's a portfolio manager and he's responsible for leading wealth management and planning for NFL and NBA clients. In addition to that, he spent 7 years with A&B Advisors as an investment advisor. He's responsible for managing investment portfolios and financial planning for professional athletes, like I just said. Man, I think it's going to be a great podcast. Owen, bro, what do you think of it? And how are you doing?
Man, this is a very great podcast just because, I've always looked at pro athletes and all the time I'm hearing like, yo, this guy went broke. This guy went broke, right? They just made $140+ million in their career. And you're wondering, like, how the hell do you go broke? Like, that's a lot of money that can set up your family. So this conversation really allowed us to see behind the closed doors of what these athletes spend on and how they can lose their money. One thing is lifestyle that we spoke about. One thing is investments. Maintenance of that lifestyle. Like once you make a big purchase, the recurring expenses that go within that can really allow you to lose your money. And at the same time, people don't have long careers in pro sports. The average year in the NFL is about 3 to 4 years. NBA is 6. Those are the two sports we covered, football and basketball. But generally, the lifetime of a pro athlete is very, very short. So you make a lot of money and then you lose it, and these kids are 19, 20, 21, so they don't really know much about managing money. So you can see the pitfall. So this was a very enlightening conversation. It really allowed me to know what these pros spend on. And as well too, I had dreams of playing pro ball, right? Being an NBA player. So talking to someone who manages pro ball players' money, like first rounders, and seeing what they spend on is amazing. I'm doing well. It's amazing today out, bro. I was on the patio this morning, just basking in the sun, sipping on some coffee, and about to clean it up. But yeah, bro, another day, another dollar. March 20th, 2021. About to get it popping. But yeah, man, how about you? What's Gucci?
Man,
what's Gucci in Alex
here.
Witt?
I'm enjoying the weather out here. One thing that's new with me is that we're doing a case study for the Facebook ads for podcasts. Case study. It's going to be interesting. So far, it's going decently well. The Facebook ads account got disabled, so I had to get online with Facebook and get that handled. Ads are getting rejected, so I got that handled. So it was an interesting week. But I'm excited to actually go outside. I want to start doing calisthenics, and really jump into getting back into the Alex mode. You know what I'm saying? Getting back into
into fitness and exercising and just active.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
I hear you, bro.
yeah, man, I'm excited to enjoy the good weather out here, and I'm by the lake, so I'm excited to just chill by the lake and take in the vibe out here.
Oh man, I hear you, bro. It's about to be summer season, bro. So it's now is the time to start putting in work. If you want to look quasi good, at least because to look like a beach model or whatever, that's out of the question. But looking presentable, that's one thing, man. And one thing is diet, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get into fitness here a little bit, but diet is one thing that I'm working on. Maybe cutting on the alcohol. I'm making too many cocktails on the weekend, so I got to cut off on that. And it's a lot of sugar. So it can really build up, builds inflammation and everything. But yeah, bro, Mine is kettlebell. Yours is calisthenics. Mine is kettlebell workouts. I'm doing consistently like every day, and we'll see how that goes, man.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Speaking of workouts, man, and what's working in business, let's talk about the business tip of the week. Today, I've been on Clubhouse over the last 2-3 weeks, started to moderate rooms, and one thing I'm always getting asked about is the iOS update. And even though I've answered a few times, I really want to drive the message home because a lot of people are more than worried of what's going to happen. So, first off, what is the iOS update? Go ahead, Owen.
I think we don't know the magnitude of it. I think people are feeling as if like, yeah, it's iOS update, but you've spoken about it. I was telling you earlier, man, I don't really know the magnitude of this. Like, I feel like we'll find a way regardless, but you seem to know like it's bigger than what we think it is. And I think a lot of people need to really understand how this can really impact them.
Well, here's the thing is that, Facebook is built off data. It's built off the consistent flow of data from websites to Facebook, right? And what Apple is doing as a hardware, provider is giving people the option to opt out off of that tracking, So Facebook will be missing two things. One is the tracking of people who go from Facebook, off of Facebook, to specific websites, and also people who go into websites that have the pixel to give that information back to Facebook to say, hey, this is a good audience to target, So before, Mary that is going wedding shopping would go to, brides.com, wedding.com, and would start looking for wedding dresses, right? And they would have pictures on the websites, and that would feed information back to Facebook saying, hey, Mary's looking for wedding gowns. Also, if, Mary's on Facebook and gets an ad for that wedding dress, she'd click off it, and then the brides.com, wedding.com would be able to see that Mary is now shopping on her website and just hit convert to get her email in order to get a discount on wedding dresses. With this new iOS update, Mary can opt out of both being tracked as someone that's browsing for wedding dresses and for someone who clicks off of Facebook and goes shopping for those wedding dresses on brides.com, on weddings.com, whatever I just said. You get me? So that's where the problem is for a lot of advertisers, and this can hit a lot of people. A lot of people are, dependent on Facebook. Facebook has become a dependency for a lot of businesses. So that's where I think the problem is for a lot of companies. But there's going to be workarounds. Right now, what Facebook's working on is creating an API that works around it, and they're also, creating verifications and conversion events that still will be able to track it. So what people can do in this instance to keep it simple, because we're on a podcast, and I'm going to create actually a downloadable version so people can have like an actual push this button at that button to actually help you improve. Is verify your domains. That's the first thing you can do. Make sure you verify your domains. We were doing this earlier this week, where we were adding the Facebook TXT file to your domain. And that's one big thing. The other big thing that you can do is make sure your conversion events are working properly on your website. Those are two major things you can do. The next is manage your email funnels. What's your lead magnet? A lead magnet is something that attracts leads to give you their email or their contact information. An example of that is, hey, sign up now and get 30% off XYZ. Another example is, this is the best, sticking on the example of Mary and her wedding dress, is these are the top 5 wedding dresses women wore in the 60s, right? And it would just be a downloadable that she would download and get in her email. These are things that you can do to increase your conversions by having more people in your funnel. So you can retarget them through using the email list or contact information, or retargeting them through consistent email emails trends and sending them more emails. So those are some options you can do to work around the iOS update. I'm getting a ton of questions around it. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I am at Elevated Alexander on Instagram, or you can check me out and send me an email or DM at well, not a DM, an email at alexw at experiencewit.com. So that wraps up my business tip of the week. Oh, what do you think, bro? Anything to add?
In regards to the Facebook ads, not really. I mean, I'm also very new to this, so I can't really offer anything of substance right now. So I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut on the subject matter and let you educate me and the masses and the audience. But yeah, man, it's good to see there's alternatives though, right? That there are alternatives, and it's just gonna be the way things are, and we have to adapt regardless of what the situation is. So yeah, man, that's all I gotta say about it.
Awesome,
But
man. Let's get to the Hustle Nation, man. What you got for us today?
it's that time of the hour, guys. All right, boom, boom. All right. So, guys, you already know what time it is of the podcast. It's Mr. Hustle Muscle on the mic, ready to give you that Hustle Nation tip of the week. And today we're talking about delivering more than what is expected. You know, we're in an era where everybody is doing good work. If you have an e-commerce website, a YouTube channel, podcast, there's a lot of competition. It's fierce, and your business has to have a level of service, product, professionalism to have customers coming back. And I remember when Alex was saying how to really make it on YouTube now, you can't come in with a low quality video. You know, the bare minimum is at least 720p, right, Alex? 720p video to get the
Correct.
algorithm to notice you. So the bar has been set because everybody is putting out great content and are building a great following. So this goes to your business as well. What are you doing to stand out that gets your customers to talk to others about it? What is your customer service like? How is your packaging like? There's so many great things I can mention, but you have to think about what it is that we can do that will maximize our experience. And it reminds me of this story when the CEO of Airbnb, Brian Chesky, was giving a talk on startups. And one of the things that he was talking about, he was asking his team, you know, what does a 5-star experience look like? He asked them, and everybody on the team went, you know, a 5-star experience will look this, like when a guest comes in, they have treats on the pillows, there is a map of what to do around the city, the house is clean, everything. Okay, then he went a step further. What's a 6-star experience look like? Okay, a 6-star experience would look like, hey, there's cookies on the table, there's food provided for you to eat as soon as you arrive, and etc., etc. Then he went ahead and then he says, okay, let's push to the next step. What's a 7-star experience look like? A 7-star experience will look like, hey, there's a car available for you to go. There is a guide ready for you at the city. And he went 8th and 9th and 10th and so forth. And once they got to 10, the Airbnb team painted this whole extravagant experience of what a guest will go through like, and what the host, their experience will be like when handling with a guest. So what he did is he did this exercise with his team to push the boundaries of what an end-to-end experience would be for an Airbnb user, and how they would work to create it each day, and how they can do this at scale. So I say that to say this, you know, delivering more than what is expected. You look at Airbnb right now, it's a multi-billion-dollar company because it's built off great experiences. It's a marketplace business, but whenever you use Airbnb, you can guarantee that experience will be replicated whenever you go to another Airbnb, no matter where you're at in the world. So look in your business and ask, you know, start, what is a 5-star experience, right? No matter what business you're in, it doesn't matter. What does a 5-star experience look like for that particular business you're in? And do this exercise all the way till you're out of the 10. And don't be afraid to think outside the box, right? This is where the magic happens. And you'll find unique ways for your business to deliver what is more than is expected. And once you cross that threshold of delivering more than what is expected, this is where people will talk about you. You're going to have referrals. You're going to create a great brand. And, you know, having a great brand is not what you think it is, but your brand is what people say about your company. That's what makes up your brand. The outside people dictate what brand it is you have. And the brand is what you make your customers an audience feel once they experience your product or service. So that is a Hustle Nation tip of the week. Deliver more than what is expected. Just doing good isn't good enough because everybody's good these days. Everybody has a great web experience. Everybody has a great product, but it's the little things that make the difference between good to great. So that's the Hustle Nation tip of the week, guys. Let's have a great Monday. Let's finish out March strong, and we'll be back on April with another fresh pod for you. And let's get it. Bang, bang.
Let's go. All right, let's get into the hustle. My apologies. Let's get into the housekeeping items and into the pod.
Straight to the patio, Michael Hairston, man. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, guys? To support this show for free, here are some main options. If you're on Apple, make sure you rate and write a review of our podcast. This makes a huge difference and helps support the show. If you're on Spotify, follow us. If you're on Google Play, hit subscribe and auto-download so you'll be notified and have a fresh pod ready to go when we drop. Lastly, make sure you share the podcast on Instagram or whichever social platform you use and tag us. On Twitter, we're at 24/7 Hustlers. On Instagram, we're at 24/7 Hustler. And on Facebook, we're Hustle Over Everything. And now, guys, gotta pay attention to this point. We just dropped a new newsletter. It's called The Underrated. It's a weekly newsletter that breaks down untold stories that highlight game-changing business strategies that shape our sports, music, and culture. It drops once a week on Mondays, early in the morning, to prep you for the week. So subscribe to that, and we'll see you in the pod.
Come on, motion creates emotion. And when he said motion creates emotion, it just stuck with me, right? Like the more you follow, and as I always tell Alex, like form follows function, right? Like you keep moving, you get happy, you get jazzed up, and you find yourself just moving and grooving and getting things done, right? So it's all about claiming that positive attitude.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's what it's
Couldn't
all
agree with you
about.
more.
100%, man. So, Michael, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited about being a part of your show, man. I first of all, I want to commend you guys. I didn't get a chance to tell you this privately, but now that we're recorded, now I can't. What I'm about to say, I can't take back. So, but I just want to tell you guys that I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. Love your work, love your podcast. The guests that you've had have been that I've listened to have been fantastic, and I've looked at some of the lineups. And I got to tell you, I'm looking at myself like, what am I doing here?
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot.
Appreciate that, man.
You know, listen, man.
Which episode did you listen to?
Man, so the last one I was listening to was the gentleman who was talking about being a landlord. And he was talking about his company that he has and how he's using that technology to be able to find tenants for realtors, for landlords. I thought that was fantastic. And obviously I listened to Paul. Paul was the one that had me knocked out my seat, man. Paul Brunson.
Me
Oh
too.
my goodness. I just sat there, was like, and then obviously he was the one I think so I'm supposed to be following him or guess or somewhere. I was like, how do they want me to talk about my life when I just listened to what this guy just went through? Like there is no comparison to what this brother has accomplished. Like that is just fantastic. Man. So, and there were a couple others in between that I listened to. I think Mario was his name. Mario Armstrong was his name.
No. Carl's one that just dropped.
Carl, the
Yeah.
esports guy. The esports guy. Yeah, that was dope too. I mean, the esports guy. I mean, because that's huge. I mean, me being in the sports and entertainment world, I know how big esports is becoming, and to listen to his story and how he's created basically something out of nothing. Because there's a lot of people who just did not believe in esports, and over the last 5 years to see it explode to what it has now, and what he's able to do and accomplish. Man, my hat's off to him. So Carl is phenomenal. But like I said, I'm listening to all these brothers talk about their stories. I'm like, man, this is dope. Where do I fit in?
Man, that's what we're about to find out. We're about to show the world what you're bringing to the table, Michael. So,
and I also want to say, like, my life don't compare to Paula's at all either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was looking at like, damn, like, from, working with a billionaire to another billionaire. Like, I don't... Yeah, I don't compare you like that either, So we all like under that level. That's like goals, I guess,
Right.
Yeah, most definitely.
I could agree with you more. I mean, that is the goal. I mean, but you know, the one thing I enjoyed about every single podcast is that different backgrounds, different stories, different levels of success.
Yeah.
But there are some key principles amongst all of them that were very, very clear if you're really listening. And that's what I commend you brothers on, and what you're bringing is taking these different stories, and each one of them in their own articulate, unique way is telling their story, but they're also telling the keys to success. And to me, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or searching to be a billionaire, or you might be in the thousandaire club. The principles of success are still the same. It's about consistency, believing in yourself, taking advantage of opportunities when they come up, you know, overcoming challenges because everybody's going to have them, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So fantastic work to both of you guys.
Most definitely, man. So I want to get into your journey, man. So like, how did you get started with finance, man?
That's it's an interesting story because I did not go the traditional route. I'm gonna say that again. I did not go the traditional route. So when I graduated from college, my goal going to college was to be a lawyer. And I sat for the LSAT, and something just inside of me just let me know that that was not the right career choice for me. You know, actually, to be blunt, I spent some time praying about it and was just like, you know what, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, cool, I'm gonna go do it. I was sitting in the middle of the LSAT, and I'm in college. I just finished paying for college. I finished college. I'm paying for the LSAT. The test itself is like $75, $100, and it took me a minute to kind of get that together. So I paid for this test, and I'm halfway through the test, and just as clear as I'm talking to you, it's just like this voice is just like, that's not where you need to be. So I was like, wow. But why I got to hear that halfway through this test that I paid $100 for it, and I'm now not going to get the $100 back. So, so after I left that test, did a little bit more praying, soul searching, and just really realized what my passion has always been. It's about business, and it's about finance, and specifically it's about sports and money. So when I grew up, and how I grew up, and coming from an inner city, and always hearing about sports and athletes, and you know, that's I'm not well, I played high school sports, but I didn't play in college. So, you know, the idea of being an athlete a professional athlete just never crossed my mind. And just the way that I was raised, it was just never, I was always told, go to college, get a good job, and then you'll have a successful career, and then you retire. That's kind of what got ingrained in me, right? But I just had something down inside of me about sports and money and trying to combine it. And then I ended up, after I graduated from University of Cincinnati here in Ohio, where I'm from, I just had this passion. So I worked a dead-end job for about a year in finance, particularly regarding with a mutual fund company. And then I just had a conversation with my college professor. And this is actually one of the keys that I've learned in listening to all your different colleagues that I also share with them, is that network is important. Sometimes some of the people that you have in your circle, don't just overlook them or look to get something from them and then move on. Stay in connection. So I actually had a college professor who I talked to, and I sat down with him. It was like, hey, you know, and we didn't have the strongest relationship, but he knew me from a couple classes. He knew me as a good performer. But you know, I told him, I was like, I'm interested in sports and money, and there's got to be some way to combine that. So this fellow tells me to go talk to a bank that was in town that had actually just started a division dealing with sports and entertainment. So I walk into that particular company just to have an informational interview and just to talk to them, to kind of learn more about sports and entertainment and how this bank is basically putting together the division to cater to professional athletes. Got an informational interview, said thanks, walked out the door, and it just changed my mindset. Well, they called me 2 weeks later and said, hey, we want to offer you a job. You know, so that's just kind of where it started and blossomed from there. And I've been in the sports and entertainment world since then.
I want to ask you about like doing the LSAT, right? What was the vision of success? Like, was that like something that was ingrained by your family? Did you see a successful lawyer in your history that led you down that path? And when did you realize, like, did you have inclinations that enough is enough? Like this law school thing is not going to work out.
Yeah, when you raise a good question. In to how a lawyer got instilled in me from the time I was young. Again, I just told you I came from the inner city. So that's where I was born at. So in the inner city, the conversation with, especially being a young black male, was go to school, get a good job. Now, let's identify what a good job is. So a good job is not working in manufacturing, but get a good job means that you're working in some type of field that requires a college degree. So that means that you, being black, being in the inner city, you're either an engineer, or you are a attorney, some type of profession, or architect. Like those are professions that were basically brought up to me as ones that I ought to pursue because I was very good at drawing. So architecture made sense. That my parents tell it, I was very good at debating. So being a lawyer probably made sense too. So I was trying to finagle my way out of something. So being a lawyer made sense. But my mom actually worked for a huge law firm. So she was a paralegal for a law firm. So that lawyer piece stuck to me more than anything else because that's what I kind of see my mom doing as a paralegal. So that just kind of got wrapped into my head. And then I got blessed to get out of the inner city and go to some private schools. And being around the individuals at the private school, their families, doctors, lawyers, engineers, like highly successful people. So naturally, it's like, okay, that's what I ought to gravitate to be. So when I got to college, my thought process is I would become a corporate lawyer. Like that was my thing. So I would become a corporate lawyer, work my way up the chart from being a corporate lawyer to being CEO of a company. I had read a book called "Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun." It was about yeah. So in that book, it was powerful because what it did is it broke down one of the first black owners, first black CEOs of a 500 company, which is TLC Beatrice. So that was the name of the company. But from there, he was a corporate lawyer. So I figured, oh man, I want to try to do what he did. And it just didn't work out for me. I mean, it just wasn't what my passion was and just wasn't what I was really excited about, particularly as I was studying for the LSAT. I went and took the test. So thank God. And I applied for law schools. And it just didn't feel right, And then at that point, that's where I had to go back and revisit my roots and kind of landing the plane. My root was always in business. I've had an entrepreneurial mindset ever since I was young. So I actually started my first business when I was 10 and then just kind of went from there, called myself being a business person. But even as I started my businesses and tried to do things, my family would always have a way to kind of bring me back to say, okay, well, that's cool, but make sure that you get your education so that you become one of these.
Like a backup plan or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, but nonetheless, so that's what happened. So it wasn't until I had that conversation with my college professor and just to share with him what I was interested in doing that it became real, that it was possible. Because no one I was around ever talked about sports and money and sports and business, the business side of sports. No one really talked about that. It was always, if you're going to do sports, be good at it to make it to the league, whatever that league might be. And then that's kind of what we always talked about. But that seemed like a pipe dream. So you got to have that backup plan.
Most definitely. Did you pass your LSATs?
I'm sorry?
Did you pass your LSAT?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Here's why. When I'm a big believer that when you find something or you feel a passion point and you know that there's a direction you need to go, you just need to stop right there, cut your losses and go that direction. So I couldn't leave. They wouldn't let me leave. But pretty much I just stopped taking the test because my focus was just all off at that point. Now
you're like this eureka moment. It's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. And that's really, as a financial advisor and me talking or a financial planner and I'm talking to people, it's like, you got to have a strategy. And once you figure out what your strategy is, then that's what you need to pursue. Even if that means you need to be able to cut ties from where you are, pursue the strategy that makes some sense. And don't be afraid about cutting ties. Sometimes we get involved with things and we're not ready. We don't want to lose, per se. I don't want to lose that money, so let me still keep trying. Sometimes you just need to cut ties and just kind of, okay, I took a L, I learned my lesson, now I need to move forward.
Yeah, most definitely. What thing you said that really stood out to me, following your dreams can lead to somewhere that, you really feel fulfilled in. Because, I was telling Owen this story the other day, when I was in early college, I started this blog called Lex Right Brain, and it's still up. Even I just keep it running for no reason. And I ended up interviewing this owner of this store on a whim, and this painter that was an entrepreneur that was already booming in the city. Just try to interview art owners, you know what I'm saying? People who are dabbling in the art world, And I was having fun at the time, and I was just going downtown, just figuring it out. And I ended up at this one store, and I was like, wow, this is interesting, and didn't even organically came upon it, Years later, I try to cut back into business, cut back into school, and I'm like, man, I still want to create something. I started doing the podcast, right? And I started interviewing entrepreneurs, and I came across a store, and I walked into the store, and then it dawned on me, hold on. This is the exact same store and the exact same owner that I originally went into when I was in college. that I'm now about to interview for the podcast. And I was like, damn, like when you follow your career organically, like things were already, I was already on that path in life. I just took a detour.
Yeah.
You know, this is like how it goes sometimes. But
Yeah, that's what I was even gonna add on top of that. I like it's like what I always talk about, like with the universe, like signs and synchronicities and everything speaking within you. Like that's actually like your true vision. That's your true identity. And if you ignore that, you're actually ignoring your true calling of what is actually meant for you. So you're actually blocking blessings by following what you think is actually the true path what people have externalized on you to follow. So crazy thing is, like when you guys like are talking about that, you didn't know how you're gonna create that success. Like Mike, you didn't know that you're gonna be where you are today, but you just went with it, and one thing showed up after the another. One thing showed up here. This relationship led here, and now we're here sitting with you as like a financial expert with managing clients' money, professional athletes, and you accomplished like what you wanted to accomplish, which is crazy. So I think this is like a good learning lesson for people listening. Like, just take the first step. Things act like a snowball, right? Things will just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and before you know it, you have like a massive ball full of experience, knowledge, success. Things happen. You just gotta let it be.
Yeah. I agree with that.
so, you know, for the audience, just to give them more context into, you know, your track record, what context could you give us? Because of course, you know, there's 100% wow, can I speak today? Confidentiality agreements that, you know, that you have to respect, you know, but to give our audience some context, what can you say to the degree of athlete and, you know, entrepreneur and, you know, the financial status that you have to deal with in your resume?
Yeah, so I get that question a lot where people, when they find out that I'm in sports and entertainment, they're like, well, what clients did you work with? Confidentiality, I cannot tell you that. What I will tell you is this. So I have been in this field going on, and I started to lose count, so forgive me for looking up in the sky to try to count this real fast, almost 25 years. I've been doing this. So, like I said, I first started in the business in 1997, working for a bank that, through a series of mergers, became a very, very large bank. In fact, what we dub now today is it's called a super regional bank. But that particular bank is called U.S. Bank to be precise. It had a pro sports division. When I first got there, I was actually hired to be a portfolio manager. So I was the one actually building investment portfolios for their athlete clients. And when I got there, we had maybe 13 clients, no, about 20 clients that we had. And I think we had about $14 million under management at that time. About 18 months after being a portfolio manager, I was given the opportunity to be on what we call the relationship management side and working closely with the athletes themselves. So I started in the NFL ranks and dealing with and leading our NFL practice, if you will, and basically responsible for networking with those within the NFL circles. And then eventually I got to be the leader of our NBA circle. So there was a gentleman that was there who basically was the managing director of the division. He was responsible for Major League Baseball and a couple other sports like golf, NASCAR, what have you. So I was there for 10 years. So by the time I left, we went from 13 million to about 150 million, almost 200 million of assets under management during that time. So explosive growth that took place, not just because of me, but just through a combination of our whole entire team. And then obviously the size of the bank and the experience of the bank and the reach of the bank, it made it that much easier to bring on clients. So I did it for about 10 years. I left, got into sports marketing for a quick minute, and then I got traditional sports marketing. I got back into financial service as an independent investment advisor. And I've been an independent for the rest of my career, which basically means that I'm working closely with individuals to help them fulfill their goals and responsibilities, and I act as a fiduciary for them, and I still am dealing with the professional athletes today. So I've had the opportunity to work with number one draft picks on the NBA side. I had an opportunity to work with top 5 picks on the NFL side. What's interesting in speaking specifically about the NFL, over a third of that league is what they call undrafted free agents. Guys who basically never got drafted, but they figured out a way to make their way onto the practice field and onto the field and become highly successful. I'll give you a quick story. One of my very first clients, he was an undrafted free agent. But he played so well that they gave him a contract extension. He played 15 years in the league. When he was done, his career earnings was almost $50 million. Well, actually about $55 million just by being an undrafted free agent. So those are the people who I start to
Wow.
kind of run across and have had some opportunity to work with. I've also been blessed to work with some entertainers and musicians along the way, music producers. So I've just had an opportunity to work with a lot of different people and from a lot of different backgrounds. So just not within sports, but even within the entertainment world too.
The sports part is very interesting, right? And I think this is a world where everybody knows what goes in it. Like we see the big contracts, we see the max deals, we see flashy checks, but there's a business behind that, and we don't know like the psyche of an athlete. As soon as they get drafted, I think like once you're like a lottery pick, your first second pick, it's like $10 million a year. Then it goes low, low, low. Like you're coming in as a millionaire, right? So take us through the psyche of this athlete who comes to you and says, Michael, I want to invest. How do you structure their money? Like what do you look at that can really help them set up for success?
Great question. Actually, it's a couple questions, a couple pieces of that you mentioned. One, psyche, and then two, process. If I could deal with the psyche process, the psyche part first, I think it's important for everybody to realize that as a professional athlete, or as a professional period, let's just remove the athlete, but as a professional, you're geared to doing what you do best because you want to be the best at that, right? So now as a professional athlete, they're geared to doing everything that they can to be the best professional they can, whether that's a football player, whether that's a soccer player. In some countries it's called football, but in American football, tennis, whatever your sport is, you're geared to being the best at that. But the business side of it, unfortunately, there's not a lot of ways for you to kind of practice that. It's kind of one of those things that you got to learn when you get into it, because there's nothing that you can go through to kind of prepare you for that side. And for a lot of athletes, they are highly talented, highly skilled, but it's the business side of them that ends up getting all jacked up, and that's what derails their career. So what I try to explain to a client when I'm talking to them is that, hey, it's great that you're a professional athlete, but even with you being a professional athlete, let me walk you through all the various things that you need to consider that can, from a business standpoint, that can affect you, because you are essentially a business. And there's been a huge shift that's happened the last 10 years, or actually the last 20 years when I first started, to where now athletes are becoming more aware of their brand, which means that they're becoming more aware that they are a business. So therefore, they need to have qualified business people around them. But even the athlete himself can't just rely upon those business people. You need to have some level of understanding regarding business yourself to give yourself a chance at being successful. So what I do as a financial advisor is really talk to them about all aspects of business, because I'm an entrepreneur myself and have been. So what I want them to understand is the impact of, what does your budget look like? So the money that comes in and goes out, how quickly does it come in and how quickly does it go out? So everybody knows about budgets, but what the average individual may not understand is the tax impact that an athlete might have to face. So yeah, they'll have high federal taxes here in the United States, or you might have high taxes in whatever country you might be. But I know here in the United States, every city that you play in outside of your home city, you're going to have a tax liability for, because you made money in that particular city that you played in. So if you're an NBA player, you play 41 games at your home city. The other 41 games are played on the road. Every single road game that you play in that respective city and state, you got to file a tax in that particular city and state. That takes away from
Wow.
your income. So, a professional athlete can lose about 50% of their income just on taxes alone, 45% of their income just on taxes alone. Then from there, then you got professional fees that you have to pay, your agent fees and all that. So that might be another 5 on your professional fees. So that's 50% of your income. Then you got to live. So at the end of the day, what I want them to understand is that process, so they understand how much money is really left on the table to invest. So once we understand how much money is really available to invest, then I want to look at tax planning. What are ways that some of that money that went out for tax, to pay it out in tax, how can we get that back? How can we set yourself up to protect your assets that you've now accumulated in the best manner possible? How can we set up an estate plan so if something happens to you either on the field or off the field and you become injured or can't play anymore, or you happen to die, that the assets that you've accumulated can get to where they need to go and who they need to go and who you wish, versus the government stepping in and dictating who gets what and then taking half of your assets as a tax. Then from there, we get into things like charitable organizations and setting up charitable foundations. So for me, I do 360, what I call 360. So it's just not about investment management and investment planning, but it's truly financial planning and helping you grow your wealth. The last piece that I'll say that I bring to a table is I want an athlete to understand within the first couple of years that you're more than an athlete. So what are your drives and ambitions? What are things that you want to do? Because at some point you're going to transition from being a professional sports figure to something else. So what's that transit? What do you want to transition to, and get them started to think that way, so we can start building a plan to transition that way, and then their financial assets can align with that plan.
So I actually watched a video, Tyler Hero of the Miami Heat, right? They did a GQ video of like, talk about spending your first million, right? So a lot of these guys are coming in the league, young guys, like 18, 19 years old. Some of them come from like economic backgrounds, which they never had money at all. And bi-weekly, they're seeing, 500,000 just touch deposit. And it's easy for them to splurge. So how do you hold back a young guy who wants to get a Ferrari? And this is another thing too, like I want to ask you, Michael, is the family side of it. Mom wants to buy a house. You want to buy your dad a truck. You got to buy your sister. Like these pressures that come because now they're like the meal ticket out. How do you hold them back from saying, hold on. Like, I know you want to do this, but I think if you do this first, we can do this and this next. How do you handle that pressure that they're getting while also steering them in the right direction to have a successful future with their finances?
Man, that's a powerful question that you ask, and it's really it's a difficult one to maneuver because everybody's situation is different. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that there have been a lot of times where I feel like I failed in that regard because of family pressure being so great that they end up pressuring the athlete to get rid of me. And the guy will get rid of me because when I try to educate and enlighten the athlete, that causes him to go back and talk to his family circle, and their plans start to butt up against my plan. So, or what they think the athlete should do versus, what he really should be doing. So from that failure is where I've learned to say, okay, everybody needs to be included in the conversation. So athlete, him or her, who's important to you in your life, be it your mom, your dad, your grandmother, a cousin, whoever it is that's important to you in your life, let's sit down and have a joint conversation with them and invite them into this planning process that I'm engaging with you so we can understand the things that they might find to be important. And then from there, athlete, you can decide, hey, you know what, I really like what mom is talking about or what dad is talking about. So I can then work together with everyone collectively so that we're all harmoniously doing the right thing, which is helping the athlete achieve the overall success that he wishes off the field. That's not with his own bottom line being improved, but also the bottom line of his family members being improved as well. By me taking that approach, that has definitely helped out a lot. And it's also helped the athlete out a lot because it's, people don't feel estranged because, when you are making it out of the hood, whatever the hood might be for you, but when you make it to the league, most athletes that you'll talk to, I say 95% of them realize that it's a come up for the rest of the group too. So they want to bring those individuals along, but you just have to be smart about how you bring them along. And I think if you engage them early and have everybody in the conversation to say, okay, here's the overall goal that I'm trying to set for said athlete. How do you guys feel about that? Yeah, we like that. Okay, and then kind of get their thoughts and opinions on some of the planning process. And I spend a lot of time on that planning process before I actually will punch go and start to execute on tactics, because if I get everybody aligned on strategy, that makes things a lot easier.
Most definitely. So I'm curious, when you athletes are maneuvering with their money, is there someone that you see that looks like, that you look at and say, man, he's doing it right. I like what he's doing. There's someone that comes to mind when I ask you that question?
Man, there's a lot of guys that come to mind that that I always am like, forget my clients being like this guy. Like, how can I be like this guy? Everybody knows about LeBron James and the success that he's had. I'll give you one that a lot of people may not understand and may not even know this guy. His name's Luol Deng.
I was just
So
thinking that right now, man.
Luau Dang was a first round pick, played for the Chicago Bulls forever. Left to Chicago, went to Atlanta. I mean, dude had like I think a 12-year NBA. 12. He played in the NBA for like 12 years. So obviously he's amassed a lot of money. But what was interesting and he's not a client of mine, but I just love his story because what he realized early on in his career was that at some point I'm going to transition from being an NBA player. So how do I set myself up for success in the next phase? And what he ended up doing was getting into commercial real estate. So by the time that brother retired from basketball, his net worth had exploded, not because of his career earnings within basketball, because I just walked you through the math when we first started about how that works from a tax perspective, but his net worth amassed because of the commercial real estate moves that he had made. And he had amassed a significant amount of commercial real estate. He didn't need to play ball anymore. He could have. He just did it because he wanted to. And that's really the message that I want to get across to all of my clients when I'm talking to them is, hey, said athlete, at some point you're going to want to transition. So how much money, what's the minimum amount of money we need to have saved for you so that you can make that transition and still be able to live comfortably? I believe Luau had that conversation with his team of advisors and amassed that money and then figured out how to use that money and leverage that money to launch his transition, to which he did so very, very successfully. I'll give you one other example if you guys got time. So another one, he's currently still playing in the league right now, Andre Iguodala.
Is he in esports?
So Andre,
Guy, man.
I forget what he's in.
go ahead.
Is he in esports?
So
What'd you say, Al?
yeah, he's Andre is with Golden State right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, he was with Golden State, so he got traded over from Golden State. He went to got traded from Golden State to Oklahoma City. Didn't play with them, and then end up in Miami. So he's in Miami right now.
Okay.
So what Andre Iguodala did is he started when he was in gold, even before he got to Golden State. He started dabbling in technology startups. So it's unknown what his net worth is, but he and Steph Curry and some other NBA players developed a coalition partnering with the VC firms out in San Francisco and launched technology startup funds. So new ideas that came around, they started investing in them. You know, that's what that to me, that's powerful because that means that he had a team of people around him to say, okay, what's the next phase of your life going to look like? And let's start working on that and working toward that. Even while you're playing and you've got a network, you've got cachet, you've got money, you've got access to people, start working on that now. So when you transition, you can be in a much better position than where you are now playing. So to me, Iguodala, he doesn't have to play, and I don't want to tell that man's business, and I don't want to tell him what to do. But to me, it's like he's made enough smart moves. He's just playing because he want to play, and that's the position that you want to be for all of us, athlete and period. You want to be able to do what you do, and I want to be great at it, but I want to do it when I want to do it, how I want to do it, at the time that I want to do it. But if I don't want to do it, I'm still making money.
The opportunity to say no.
Exactly, man. We hear like a lot about like these guys going broke, right? They've made over $100 million. Last time we spoke earlier, brought up Antoine Walker, blew it all, right? What are some things that perhaps the public doesn't know that makes these athletes go broke? Like where you've seen in the background that makes them have like, you can just tell it's going downhill from there. Like what are some certain things that they do, purchase, mismanage, that can also be applicable to us regular folks here that can, you know, help us continue building our money, but specifically for the athletes, like what makes them go broke? Because 100 million to lose, that's a lot of money, right? Like you give someone 100 million, how do you lose 100 million? It's just baffling. So what makes them go broke?
It's another fantastic question. And it's like the age old mystery. You know, where everyone's trying to understand like what happens with somebody who's made that type of money to where they might go broke. Like a Mike Tyson who's made, almost $500 million during his career and basically had to almost file. I think he did file bankruptcy if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, he's doing okay, but a lot of that money was gone. To which we can all point to purchases, extravagant purchases and things of that nature that can lead someone to go astray. Can I just be real with you guys? I know you guys appreciate this, being real with one another and having real candid conversations.
Let's do it.
It's not the purchases.
Absolutely.
It really is not. It's really not. In my professional opinion and from my experience, has been two things. One, an athlete makes a transition from playing sports and he's not sure what to do next. So he's still trying to stay connected to sports, or he or she is still trying to connect to sports and will be viewed as that sports figure that living that life. So they end up, their lifestyle does not change to where they are now because they don't know where they are now. They're in a state of confusion. So most athletes end up going broke within the first few years, or start that path of being broke accelerates that first 4 to 5 years after they transition out their sport, because they keep spending at that same level, even though income's not coming in. And I'm not talking about extravagant spending. I'm just talking about you're spending at a level where you used to bring in $5 million a year, $3 million a year. You're still spending at that level, but you're bringing in zero. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to see if you're bringing in zero, but you're still spending more than what you're bringing in. That's going to put strain on your financial portfolio very, very quickly. So one, that transition, and not having a transition as to what they're going to do next. And so what I would say for the rest of us that, or who are not professional athletes, look, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have something that you're stretching for, the possibility is there that you might just be floundering around, and your dollars may not stretch as far as you want to because there's no goal. There's nothing to shoot for, So that's one. And I think the second thing I would just say is a lack of empowerment. You can only function at the knowledge that you have. And you being a professional athlete, or you being someone who works a 9 to 5, if you don't have someone who's really ready to pour into you and give you financial information, give you financial education to empower you and enlighten you so that you can become enriched in your decisions and know why you're making those decisions. If you don't have that, that foundation is critical. And without that foundation, it's going to be hard to leap forward. It's going to be hard to leap forward, even though you make a lot of money, because you're only going to operate at the level that you have knowledge and experience with.
Lifestyle creep.
Yeah. And even like cutting exactly lifestyle.
I mean, because it's when you get more money, you increase your lifestyle to match it, right? So like they say, like Floyd Mayweather spends a boatload of money because he's making so much. So it's almost like even at his level, he's still in that cyclical state of I'm making a boatload of money, then spending a boatload of money, But I think he's kind of wised up now as of the last few years. But they were saying that about Floyd Mayweather as an example of somebody who has incredible lifestyles. And if he stops boxing, then that lifestyle is going to continue. So it's like, how do you maintain that? Yeah, it makes perfect sense, man. What are you going to say, Owen?
I was just going to say it's hard to go backwards in lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, this is all you've known from 20 to 36. Let's say like if you actually have a good tenure of an NBA player, because I think they have the longest lifeline. Like, I mean, the average is like, what is it, 6 years, but then for NFL is 4. But let's say like the average NBA vet, right? Your kids, your wife, your family, they've known for you to like be spending like these vacations, and then it stops, boom. And now you can't make them say, hey guys, like we gotta downsize, we gotta do this, we gotta like they've known is this. So if they didn't have those assets coming up, like it's pretty much curtains, because like how are you gonna go backwards in lifestyle, especially telling that to your children, your wife especially. That's all she's known, right? And you have all these pressures that just like makes everything
it does. And if I could eventually jump in real quick, but you because Owen, you said something, both of you guys said something, lifestyle, right? Lifestyle is important. So you need to be rewarded, and I want everybody to hear this. I don't care how much money you make, you need to reward yourself for what you've earned. So there are some things that you are going to do, and Alex, as you said, as you make more money, you're going to afford yourself some more opportunities. I'm an electronics geek, so electronics is my thing. I like electronics, but that's my reward. But I got to understand that here's my overall plan and what I'm shooting for, so I know not to go crazy with the electronics to basically derail my plan. And I think that's true for everybody. So what I do with my clients, no matter who they are, even professional athletes or not, let's get an understanding about where you're trying to go, and then how can you have the lifestyle that will make you happy? It may not be all of what you want, but at least it'll give you a sense of security and happiness. How can we build that lifestyle? And then what type of investment portfolio do you need to have to be able to support that lifestyle? So if you guys don't mind, let me give you a quick story as to what I mean to kind of illustrate this point.
Let's do it.
So I had a young
For
man
sure.
who I've been working with the last 6 years, 7 years. So I met him after his rookie year. So he was a third round pick. He already had a financial advisor in place. I just happened to run across him and just through conversation was just talking to him just to enlighten him and just give him some information, some things to think about for his own personal financial well-being and that of his family. That one conversation turned into multiple more, and then eventually he ended up hiring me. But when I asked him later, like, what was the turning point? Because I'm never one to try to poach business from somebody else because that's not it. In fact, I was telling him to stay where he's at. But we were having a conversation. He's like, you know what? I feel comfortable working with you. And I'm like, what was the turning point? Like, what made it a turning point for you? And what he said was this: you were the first advisor to sit down and talk to me and tell me that I can still live a comfortable lifestyle and still save for the future. And then you made it plain to me what that requires, which for him and for his lifestyle and where he wanted to be, he needed to retire with a portfolio of $5 million for him. And then he can live off of that portfolio for the rest of his life. And I told him that after his rookie year had just ended. That brother hit that number by the fifth year. He actually exceeded it. Not because of anything magical that I did, but because he knew what the number was. So everything he was doing was like, hey man, I'm trying to get to this number. But he had fun. He still kicked it. He had his cars and everything else. And, but he was mindful about what he did because he was trying to hit that number. It almost became a competitive thing for him. I got to hit this number. I got to hit this number. Once he hit that number, his next 2 years in the league, he's like, man, in fact, the last year in the league, he was just like, I ain't, in fact,
done.
yeah, he's like, I'm out. I don't have to. And that's what I want to bring to clients. And that's what everybody strives for. How can I get to a point to where I can have those options? Well, you can't have the options if you don't know what financial security looks like and what your number needs to be. And I think that's what, for him, that's what was helpful. But he still was able to live his lifestyle because he knew what his number was. And he was able to live it now. He didn't have to wait till he retired.
That's huge. That's huge. No, that's 100% right, I'll tell you a story that's aligned with that. When I was working at my last job, I was planning on quitting. And I spoke with my girl and like, all right, let's think of a plan. And she gave me a number. And within that year, I could work my ass off. And that's exactly, I was like, all right, boom, here it is. There's the number. And she's like, damn. If I had known he would have gotten that quick, I would have made it higher. You know what I'm saying? Because once you put your head down to it, and once you have that mindset, all right, this is the number I'm going for. It makes a tunnel vision on you. Like it puts a tunnel vision on you. So yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. So what lessons can we take from that? I'm guessing it's having a goal, but where do we apply these goals? Let's just start breaking it down into tactical ways that we can apply these goals. What advice do you have there?
Man, that's a loaded question because we could be here for hours going through that one. Here's what I would say: the practical thing number one, make sure that you have an attainable and realistic goal. Just to say that I want to retire comfortably, that's not really as realistic because it's still kind of open. So what is it that you want to do? What is it that, what is it that will get you excited that you're trying to shoot for, or whatever your vision is for yourself? What is it? Whatever that is, get that down, write that down, write it down. I'm a big believer in writing things down. So if you don't write that down, if you keep it up here, that's cool. But eventually what you think up here, you'll end up losing, and it'll change iterations over time. And you'll end up, what you once started with, you'll lose that idea. Write it down. And then from there, then say, okay, what would it take me financially to achieve this? And then what would it take me from a time perspective to reach this? And then who do I have to connect with to help me reach this? That's all part of the planning process. Those are real simple things that you can do and should do before you sit down and talk to anybody about an investment strategy, before you talk to anybody about, investment options. Know what your strategy is. What do you try? Know what you're trying to achieve and what your vision is, and then develop some things within yourself to say, you know what, this is probably what I ought to do. This is how I think I ought to achieve it. And then you bring in the professionals to double check the work that you've done. That's where I think I see a lot of people get in trouble, is because the goal has been to try to create wealth. And I'm all about creating wealth. And investing is one way to do that, not just in the financial markets, but owning real estate and investing in businesses. Investing, period, is a fantastic way to grow your wealth. In fact, it's really one of the surefire ways of growing your wealth. But I see a lot of people try to grow their wealth through investing, but they have no reason as to why they're investing, or no cut vision as to what they're looking to try to achieve. And that's where you get in trouble, and that's where you trip up.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, like, one of the things that I personally have struggled with, and talking to like my sisters, everything. We always talk about finance, right? And budgeting is one thing. You being a financial advisor, like budgeting and sustaining a budget is extremely tough. Like, you can set up the spreadsheet and then something can just curtail it, and you find yourself frivolously spending on things. What is your philosophy or approach to budgeting that you advise your clients that is extremely sustainable, that once you implement 1, 2, 3 certain steps, that this will work for you no matter like what type of income you have? Like, is there like a allocation strategy of certain dollars you do here and
Right.
etc.? Because it's a habit, right? So like, what are those habits you teach your clients, your entrepreneurs that you work with, and other families that you work with to sustain
Fantastic
that lifestyle
question.
and also budget properly?
Y'all want me to give y'all a textbook answer or the real answer? Which one y'all want me to give you?
Give me the real every time.
Real.
I
Keep it
say that
real.
just
Keep
being
it
joking.
keep it straight.
So I like I said, I started this business being untraditional, and I'm still untraditional to this day. All right. So if you were to take your answer and look it up on Google, they'll give you 50, 30, 50, 30, 20. So if you Google that answer, that's probably what you'll see. Like, the 50% of your income should go toward fixed expenditures, 30 should go to variable, 20 should go to savings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Listen,
I've done that, Michael. It never worked, and I stopped listening to
Susie,
like
listen, I'm not
Susan
poo-pooing on
Oberman.
anybody,
What's
and
her
I'm not
name?
going to say anything. Everybody's got a system that makes sense. So that 50, 30, 20 might work for somebody, but it's not for everybody. So what I would tell you is this, and I'll be the first advisor to probably say this, and I'm saying it on record, and I'm probably going to regret it later. I hate budgeting. I do. I hate it. To me, it's a tedious exercise. People come to me with spreadsheets, put down everything that they have. 3/4 of the expenditures that they put down there are the dollar amounts are incorrect, or there's probably another third of or a quarter of expenditures that you totally miss that you use all the time that you don't think about. Like, for example, I mean, all right, all three of us are brothers. We get our hair cut. Haircuts cost money. But when you develop your budget, do you put a line item in there for your haircut?
Yep.
Most people don't. You use cash all the time. I mean, people, well, not now because we moved to a cashless society, but you still need cash to do things. So every time you hit the ATM, does that go onto your budget? Probably not. So here's a couple tricks of the trade that I would tell somebody. So before you develop a budget, understand how you've really been spending money. And I'm a big believer in technology, and one of the best apps that I've seen is Mint, M-I-N-T. It's through Intuit. So you can go to Mint, and it will download all your checking transactions or wherever you do your spending from. It will download all of it and categorize it. And then you use that to build your budget going forward, because it'll look at historical data to tell you, okay, what you normally do. And then that's how you build your budget going forward off of what you normally do. And then it'll also, as you look at it, you'll see where the problem areas are. It'll be right there. You can't yell at me. You can't yell at anybody else except the system, but the system's just pulling in your account activity to show you what you've been doing. So that's number one. That will be the number one thing I would tell you is, use something like that to try to pull in all your expenditures, to categorize your expenditures so that you can see them. Here's something else that I would give you that is probably a helpful tip rather. And I know this works, and it might stretch some people, but I know it works. What if you can maintain your lifestyle from anywhere from 3 to 5 years off of half your salary? Imagine how much money you could save if you could live off of half your salary, whatever your income is, for 3 to 5 years. After tax.
Like net.
3 to 5 years.
After taxes.
So when my wife and I got married, and we've been married 20 years now, When we first got married, we had this conversation because we were enlightened through a conversation that we had with someone else who tipped us off to this. Mm-hmm. We said, okay, how about when we get married, we're only living off of one income and we bank the other income. We did that for 5 years. Financially, the position that we were in 5 years, when we went to go back and go look at it, it was just like, wow, I can't believe that we have amassed as much money as we have just by living off of one income. So where am I going with that? And so the key point is,
I got so much questions, man.
Listen, the key point in this is that we all want to control, we all want to have freedom, right? And we know that freedom comes with a cost. How much sacrifice are you willing to put in to reach that goal? One of my clients hit me with this not too long ago. He's like, to reach $1 million dream, you can't reach $1 million dream with $10 effort. So if you want to reach your dream, there's got to be some sacrifices along the way. So what sacrifices can you make and are willing to make to invest in your dream? And if that means reducing my lifestyle so that I can save extra money, would I be willing to do that? You know, that's the same thing that is easy for an athlete to do because they make so much money. Well, we think it is, but it's really not as easy as we believe it is. They just have more disposable income to be able to do that. But that same thing is available to us as days. So that would be the number one thing I would tell you. So if you're going to budget, use Mint or some type of tool to look at your historical data and budget going forward off of what you've done. But if you can really get your expenses down to where you can live off of half your salary or 2/3 of your salary if you're single, and if you're married off of one income, and do that for 3 to 5 years, watch out. See where you will be from a wealth perspective in that time.
That's crazy. Yeah. You know why? Because I'm thinking that's crazy. You know why? Because I'm thinking about it like, if you do that, you actually acclimate yourself to living on half. Like when you think about spending, you think, I can't really do that, because now you're so attuned to, this is all I have to spend. I have to eat within this framework. I have to spend on this framework. Oh, I can't go to like Burberry. Okay, let me go to H&M or something and get that. You know, like you start reducing how you can live within this, and then it just works. I can see that. I can see the genius behind it. That's what I'm like realizing. Like, I don't know why I haven't thought about it before.
So I'm curious, when you approach that conversation with your wife, were you already on the same page together? Or did you actually have to pitch it to her?
I was blessed with a woman that's, you know, she's probably more financially inclined than I am. So, you know, like I said, so we were on the same page, you know, because of how she grew up and her background or whatever. So I was blessed like that. But Alex, you raise a good point, because some of the podcasts that I listen to, I ain't gonna say no names, but one in particular that told us that, you know, his wife got behind his dream and sold out her 401k plan to get into her. Man, listen. Can I be real with y'all for a minute? Look.
Please,
I was driving my car when they said that.
Oh,
Brothers, I almost wrecked my car when he said that. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, what? Hold on. Look, like, where is she at? Yeah. We need to get her on a podcast.
Yeah. That's a fact. That's a whole fact. My mind was still blown. Every time I hear that, I was like, man, that is a real one,
but insane. The reason why she was able to do that, just like the reason that my wife and I agreed on the idea, is that there was a vision. So what are you pitching? Are you pitching the tactic, or are you pitching the vision? So if you pitch the vision, you're going to get a lot further than just pitching the tactic.
That's a fact. Yeah. If you just come up and it's like, yo, let's just live on one check for no reason.
Man, listen, I mean, if y'all not married, but if y'all had girlfriends and went to, you know, or if significant others and went to them right now and said, yo, we going to live off of half a check because I heard this dope financial advisor on our podcast to talk about it, I think the next time I see y'all, both y'all going to have 2 knots on the side of y'all head.
Oh, that's a fact, man. That was gonna bring me to my next question, man, because, you know, no one talks about Hey everybody, that was part 1. Tap over to part 2. See you over there. Peace.